Hello, listeners. This is Kat, and welcome back to Put Your Hands Up Podfics. This will be the continuation of Little Acts of Kindness. This will be Part 52, Chapter 52, entitled The Big Talk. Izuku changed into his hero outfit, as his classmates changed into theirs, though some changed into gym uniforms instead. Aizawa-sensei had told them to get changed and meet at Gym Gamma for their afternoon heroics class. Putting his stuff into his locker, he noticed a text from Nezu. Checking, he saw the principal had sent him some topics to research. Soon all of them stood gathered in front of a large gate. A minute after the class had started, All Might appeared. "I am here, and the reason for that is your basic hero training. It's been a while, boys and girls. How is everyone?" Despite the energetic-sounding greeting, Izuku knew All Might well enough to know the man was distracted. Though, to be fair, Izuku was distracted as well. He remembered what his grandfather had said, that All Might had told him Nana inspired him to become a hero. But he hadn't thought that she was his predecessor, the previous holder of One for All. "Not much of an entrance," Ashido commented, disappointed. "I'd expect more after a break," Zero whispered. "Maybe he ran out of sticks," Aoyama suggested. All Might seemed to sweat drop a bit, continuing on with saying, "As an immediate follow-up to your internships, today's activity is a playful one, a rescue training race." A few questions were asked, and All Might answered them all, reminding them to keep property damage to a minimum. "Do you think this will be a challenge compared to the Hell Crawl?" Kirishima questioned. Ida winced. "No." Kaminari laughed. "No way, man. This should be a breeze." "Hell Crawl?" Bakugo questioned, eyes narrowed. "Oh, shit, man. You were suspended then. Sorry. Hell Crawl is basically the nickname of Aizawa's parkour gym." All Might called out the groups, and Izuku swallowed a bit. He was going against the best mobility users in the class. Izuku got into position, waiting for the horn. As soon as he heard it, he jumped up, keeping One for All distributed evenly through his body at a low power. He had trained hard, with Gran Torino, to use One for All like an extension of his body. Now it was paying off as he focused on making the correct jumps, not worried about controlling his power. He felt the wind blowing through his hair, and grinned as he touched down next to All Might, Sero only seconds behind him. Then Ojiro, Ashido, and Ida arrived. All Might congratulated them, and they went back, and soon Group 2 went. Next was Bakugo, Shinso, Mineta, Tokiyami, and Uraraka. In the end, Bakugo came in first, followed by Tokiyami, Uraraka, Mineta, and Shinso. The third round winners were Shoji, Asui, Kirishima, Koda, then Sato. The last round was Todoroki, Yaoyorozu, Aoyama, Kaminari, Jiro, then Hagakure. With the exercise done, they returned to the locker rooms, where soon the guys found a hole that had been in the wall that looked into the girls' locker room. "Guys, what should we do?" Mineta questioned, chewing on his necklace that looked like a pile of grapes. "What? Not going to start peeping on him, you little creep?" Bakugo questioned with a scoff. "No," Mineta said, shaking his head. "Why not tell the teachers? They can patch the hole," Izuku hesitantly suggested. "That's a good idea," Ida said, bringing his arm down. Mineta nodded. "I'll do that, then." Soon they were changed into their normal school clothes, and the bell rang, dismissing them. Izuku headed back towards the teacher's lounge, knowing that that was where he should meet up with All Might. When he got there, All Might was already sitting. "I invited Aizawa and Mike to join us, but we probably have a few minutes before they arrive. You mentioned that your grandfather was Yuichi Shimura." Izuku nodded, and began to explain what his grandfather had told him. All Might nodded. "I'm glad you found some family. I only met him a handful of times, at ranking events and such, and when I told him about Nana. But he seems like a good man." The door opened, and Aizawa narrowed his eyes a bit. "I was unaware you invited Midoriya, All Might." Behind him followed Yamada. "Seeing as this has to do with Midoriya, it is only right that he be involved in the conversation," All Might said, earning a nod from Aizawa. Yamada came over and sat down next to All Might, leaving the spot next to him for Aizawa to sit. Aizawa did sit down and nodded at him. "Why did you ask for Yamada and I?" "It's about my quirk. The quirk Izuku now has." "Due to the bonding," Yamada said. All Might shook his head. "No. I passed my quirk to young Midoriya." "What do you mean?" Aizawa questioned, head tilted a tad bit as he stared at All Might with a flat expression. With that, All Might launched into explaining One for All, and how he trained Izuku before passing the quirk on, both of them thinking that Izuku was quirkless. After that finished, before they could say anything, Izuku spoke up, telling them that somehow the previous users' quirks were in One for All, and he could use them, or had the potential to use them since right now, he only knew how to use the electric quirk. That is a lot of information to take in, Yamada said. Who all knows? Aizawa questioned. Besides for you two, Nezu, Gran Torino, Recovery Girl, and Detective Tsukauchi. Aizawa frowned, eyes narrowing. Izuku looked down at his lap, at his hands as he twisted his fingers together. We will talk later, All Might. For now it's time to get Midoriya home, Aizawa said, his voice sounding like his usual deadpan. Izuku followed the two teachers as they stood up and went to the car. He got in, and a few minutes into the drive he managed to gather his courage. Are you mad at me? He winced as he stuttered more than he usually did around his teachers. Why would we be mad at you? Yamada questioned. For not telling you earlier. No, we're not. You thought the secret was entrusted to you by All Might, right? You probably felt like you couldn't tell us without breaking the trust All Might placed on you, Yamada said. Izuku nodded. He never wanted to break the trust someone placed in him. He swallowed, though. While Yamada said he wasn't mad at him, Aizawa didn't say anything. He kept silent. Izuku felt tears gather behind his eyes, but he refused to release them. He was making a big deal out of nothing. Sensei wasn't mad at him, right? Right? But as the silence from Aizawa dragged on, Izuku felt more and more like his teacher was mad at him. Yamada chatted on, but Izuku couldn't bring himself to respond, trying hard to not let the tears fall. Finally, after what seemed like ages, they stopped at his apartment, and Izuku left the car and headed up to the apartment, hands shaking as he unlocked the door and practically ran to his room, where the tears finally fell. They tilted their head. As a slight protrusion came, an unknown feeling, or rather a feeling that wasn't theirs. A cry. The other felt weak, unable to help. Something was wrong. Something was bothering their sibling. They called their sibling such, as they did not know if their sibling would pick a gender. They were quite fine with just being a they. Still, the fact that their sibling felt something so strongly. They would have to check in on the carrier tomorrow, protect him until their sibling was strong enough. They were glad the carrier was giving their sibling a chance. They knew their sibling would be a good protector. The carrier needed one. Hizashi clenched his teeth as he got into the apartment, following his idiot of a husband. What the hell were you thinking? He demanded with a hiss. Shota's head whipped around to stare at him wide-eyed. His mouth opened, but Hizashi cut him off. Were you even paying attention to our little one? He was pacing now. He knew his husband could be dense sometimes, but he thought he would have enough awareness to realize how his silence was upsetting Midoriya. He left the car almost in tears, Shota. He thought you were mad at him. I'm not mad at him, Shota protested. I know that, and you know that, but Midoriya doesn't, Hizashi shouted. At an inside shout, of course. No need to accidentally destroy the apartment. Again. Sho, Midoriya trusts you, but he still doesn't know you well enough to understand that you're mad at All Might and staying silent so you don't upset him. He's only known us for a few weeks. Tomorrow you better explain to Midoriya that you're not mad at him. Shota nodded rapidly, looking like one of those bobblehead souvenirs. Hizashi sighed, shaking his head at Shota, letting him know that he was disappointed in him. He saw his husband swallow, eyes glancing away. Good, his husband was realizing just how much he messed up. He huffed, going to take a shower, just to wash the day away. As he closed the door, he heard a soft, emphatically uttered, "Fuck," coming from the living room. Giving a slight fond smile, he shook his head. His husband and the little listener would make up. Everything would turn out fine. Kagero tapped his cigarette against the ashtray, pink eyes never leaving the villain he was looking at. Oh, she masked herself well, but she was a villain by any normal person's standards. He didn't like her. It almost made him tempted to give information to her enemy just to spite her. He didn't hate her enough to refuse her service, though. But he was interested as to why she wanted to know more about some random hero kid. Yet, perhaps the kid wasn't so random at all. After all, the kid had caught Shigaraki's interest as well. Now he also caught her interest. Kid was going to get into a lot of trouble, and now it was Kagero's job to look into the kid, find information for her. She opened a case with cash. That was a lot of money for just some information. But the information she wanted was of a more personal level. She wanted to know the kid's weaknesses and anything and everything that could be used against him. Kagero glanced at the time, knowing his next appointment would be soon. I'll look into the kid, he told her. She smiled and stood up, leaving behind a small stack of money. The cost of this appointment, the rest of his payment, would be when he gave her the information. 10 minutes passed, and his next client slid into the seat. Pink eyes roamed over the girl, who looked no older than 14, but he knew she was older than that. She just liked her hosts to be teenage girls. And judging by her uniform, she had some sort of scheme that was going on, something big. Kagero gave a smile and a greeting. She waved off his friendliness, getting straight to business. She wanted someone freed from a minor prison, and needed a team to do so. Kagero nodded, and proceeded to give the information, and figured that one A-rank villain and a couple C-ranks would be enough to bust the target out. She handed over the money, and he smiled, informing her that he would bring her the team next Wednesday. He already had people in mind that would work with what she was willing to pay. Not that money was much of an issue for her family. Kagero did raise an eyebrow when she informed him about one other piece of business she had. A new drug. How intriguing. After the meeting finished, he leaned back in his chair, breathing out a small cloud of smoke. Things were starting to change, criminals becoming more active as All Might spent more and more time teaching, and less stopping crimes. Kagero tapped the cigarette against the ashtray as he looked at the image of the target that two of his clients wanted information on. Midoriya Izuku. Sadness. Why did it feel such sadness? It wanted to make the sadness go away. It couldn't. Weak. It was weak. Strength. It needed to be stronger. The feelings faded. Going away. Alone. It was alone again. Darkness. Alone. Sad. Gone. All right, listeners, this concludes Chapter 52 of Little Acts of Kindness. Chapter 53 will be up next. I was I was a little frustrated with Aizawa in this one for not saying anything to Izuku in that car ride. It made me so sad because I knew, even the first time that I read this, that Izuku was going to internalize that and think it was all his fault. So let me know your thoughts and reactions to this chapter as well. And as always, thank you so much for listening.